Hello guys, this is Ayush from Codes Room. So today I'm going to train you the complete iOS structure using Objective-C. So the very first thing which you have to do is, in order to get started, you have to go to google.com, and on Google you just have to type Codes Room. And when you have typed Codes Room, you'll just head over to the Codes Room website. Under the courses section, you'll see a particular category which is by the name of iOS structure Objective-C. You'll click on View More, and when you will click on it, you'll just see the complete things which is included in this particular pack, which is by the name of iOS structure Objective-C. By learning the complete structure, when you'll be heading over to the complete details of it, you'll be a kind of you can make your own iOS applications, and you'll be having a kind of good knowledge in Objective-C as well. So let's get started with the complete iOS structure using Objective-C. So the very first thing which you need into this particular thing is you need a Mac OS and a Xcode. So I would like to tell you that what is actually a Mac OS. So into the Mac OS, it is like the particular operating system which is actually required for you to get started. It should be installed onto your Mac machine, and in order to get started, the Mac OS with the minimum version which is required is Mac OS Sierra, on which I'm going to train you. You can just see it over to the particular section. You can click on About This Mac, and when you click on About This Mac, a particular window will appear onto your complete screen, which will tell you the particular Mac OS which you're having onto your machine right now. So right now my machine is having Mac OS Sierra, which is version 10.12. So this is actually required for your complete training. So just an update. So let's say if your Mac OS is not updated, then what you can do is you can just click onto the App Store section, or instead of clicking onto the App Store section, you can do one thing more, that if you can just click onto the software update button, and once you have clicked on it, you will just land up onto this particular section. It will show you the particular updates, that what all updates are being required. So let's say if your particular system is having any update, it will show you in this particular section, and you can just update your system accordingly. And let's say if your Mac is having a greater version than the 10.12, then it is actually not required to just downgrade your complete Mac OS. So it is the minimum version which is actually required right now. The second thing which is required for getting started and the environment setup is the Xcode. So let me tell you what the Xcode means. The Xcode is actually the IDE. The IDE means the Integrated Development Environment. So what does this particular thing means? Xcode actually means that a platform where you will be doing the coding part. So let's say if you have to make any particular software, so if you have to make any kind of application, so the environment or the particular framework in which you will be doing the particular coding, so that is actually very required. So the Xcode is the platform on which you will be doing the particular coding, and the code in which you will be writing the complete program will be the Objective-C right now. I'll be training you on Swift as well, but onto the later tutorials. So the Mac OS and the Xcode is the first thing which you need to have on your system. Let's say when you just click onto the search button onto the top, just download the Xcode 8.2.1 DMG from the google.com, and when you have just clicked on it, just install Xcode onto your Mac machine, and once you have just installed onto that, just clicked onto your Xcode. Just keep a note that when you will just install the Xcode onto your Mac machine, the Xcode will be just appearing onto your just below tray. So when you will just click on to Xcode, you'll not be seeing this particular picture. You'll see a kind of a screen where the file will be written. So you have to go onto the file, you have to go onto the new, and then you have to click onto the project section. When you just click onto the project section, a particular window will pop up onto your screen, which will elaborate many other things. So don't get confused. Just stay with me and we'll go step by step, guys. So the very first thing is what the thing is actually which is showing onto my screen right now. So the very first thing which is actually marked is as iOS. So what is iOS? iOS is a complete program in which we are making an application for iPads and for iPhones. So this is the complete iOS structure and the iOS application development. This complete part is being divided into two sections: applications and frameworks. So what does that application means and what does that framework means, I'll tell you into the later scenarios. The second category we have the watchOS. So you might have heard that Apple is making a new kind of updates for Apple Watch. I'm sure you might have been known that what Apple Watch is. So it is a smartwatch. So if you want to make your application which is running onto your devices like iPhones, and it is running onto your Apple Watch as well, so it will just create our application on both platforms. So the third category we have is the tvOS. What does the tvOS means? So let's say guys, if you want to make your application onto Apple TV and you want your application to be just shown on just when you just click on to your Samsung TV or Sony TV or any of the other kind of brand which you're using right now, which is being connected with your Apple TV, then it is just showing onto that. You can make games and any kind of application with that. It is a very interesting stuff, just believe it. So the fourth category we have is the macOS. So what does this category means? Mac OS actually means that when you are making an application which is a desktop application. So let's say users are downloading the Mac OS application for their Mac OS. It will not be a kind of application which will be installed on your phone. It will only be an application which will be a form of a DMG or kind of other software which will be installed onto your Mac machine. The last category we have is the cross-platform. The cross-platform actually means, let's just assume it by its name, that it will be running onto all of the devices. It is true actually. Into this particular IDE, we are mainly focusing cross-platform as the sprite grid game, which actually means that when we are making a 2D game or a 3D game, we actually use this particular framework so that a game is actually running onto all of the platforms. So guys, let's start with the iOS app development. So let me tell you a kind of the structure we have right now into front of a screen. The iOS category is being divided into two parts. The very first thing is the application and the second is the framework. So the application means that when we are making an iOS application which is involving a particular functionality. So let's say when we are talking about the page-based application, you might have seen the application which have the tutorial pages. So when we'll click on this particular category, we'll have the complete tutorials pages already installed into our application. So this is the complete segment in which we want the complete IDE to just do a particular things already when I am just landing onto to the Xcode later on. You'll just know about it. Don't get confused. So let's say if I talk about the tabbed application, you might have seen the application which have a footer tab bar in which they have 4 to 5 icons in which they write dashboard, contact us, share, and other kind of things. So this is the kind of thing which we have into the application structure. Onto the second note we have the framework and library. So let's say you might have heard that if I have to make a kind of Facebook integration into my iOS application, so every kind of third party libraries or third party companies, they provide us a kind of a SDK by which we integrate that SDK into my particular application and I use the functionalities which are they providing. So let's say if I give you an example, if I want my application to have a functionality of sharing with Facebook or sharing on Facebook, so I'll include a particular framework which the SDK have provided, the SDK from Facebook. So this is a kind of framework particular architecture. So let's say if I want to make my own SDK, then I'll click onto the particular file and I'll go to the next. Right now we are moving with the single view application. You'll just click on next and you'll write the product name. So let's write getting started with code through. You don't have to worry about the team, the organization name, the organization identifier. This all things will be predefined. Make sure onto the language section you have the Objective-C selected. You just click on it. Onto the devices, let me explain you that what all these three things include. So the very first thing is the universal. Second thing is iPhone. Third thing is iPad. By universal, I'm trying to explain you that when you are selecting the universal, you are making your application both for iPhone and for iPad. So let's say if I have selected only iPhone, then actually means that I'm telling my Xcode or I'm telling my IDE to only make my application for iPhone and not for iPad. And this will reflect when I'll upload my application onto App Store. So let's say if I've selected only iPad, so I'll be making my application only for iPad and that will not be running on my iPhone. So when I've selected universal, make sure that many of the times you select universal because the requirement can change at any moment of time. So let's say if you have selected only iPhone and later on you come to know that you have to make your application for iPad as well. So it is required. So then you have to do the complete rework for the iPad application. You have to make the complete application again. But in order to save time, you should select universal. About the three things which is being written over here, use core data, unit test and include UI test. Just ignore it right now. I'll tell you about this onto the later videos. You can just click on next. Then onto this particular screen, they ask you to make a complete repository. Just click on create. So guys, what is repository? Repository is a kind of a storage, you can imagine, which actually stores the particular project which you want to save. So the basic idea behind that is actually two things, 2 points you can have into your mind. The very first point is that repository helps your complete project to keep it safe and at any moment of time. So let's say I'm just coding the complete things and I'm making an iOS application, and by any moment my MacBook just crashes or my hard disk crashes or there's an internet problem or kind of any particular thing. So I don't have to worry about it if I have saved my particular code onto repository. So that will be saved onto my repository onto the server. So everything will be saved onto that. I don't want to worry about it. The second point is that when more than one developer is working onto one project, so let's say we have made the particular project as getting started with Coachroom. So into this particular project, so let's say if there are more than one developer working from another location or from the same locations, it is required to just make your project onto repository so that your project is saved onto that and multiple people can work onto that at one moment of time. So guys, let me explain you the complete screen which is being shown over here. So what this particular means, this is the name of your project which is getting started with Coachroom. This is project and targets. The projects and target, it actually means that what all things you are including on your in a complete Xcode. You can just imagine this particular screen as your setting screen. So let's say if you want your application to be running till 10.2 deployment target, you can just select the targets into getting started. This particular section, you have to just click onto the general category. So let's say if you want to control, you can just imagine as a layman that as an admin you have to control everything. So let's say what other things I can control as an admin. So this is the complete admin portal of a complete application which you are making right now. So this will be universal app, this will be portrait. So what does this portrait and orientation mean? So you actually know that what is portrait and landscape. So if you want your application to be in both structures, to running on both things, then you have to select all the particular categories. You have to select the app icon and you can select the launch screen as well. And if you are included the third party libraries, you can just include from the admin part as well. You can just imagine this particular screen as the complete admin interface. So going on to the next part, we have the complete things in front of us, which is written as app delegate, view controller, storyboard, assets, and other things. So let me tell you what is app delegate, view controller, main.storyboard, assets, launch screen, and every other things into my next tutorial. Guys, please stay tuned with my next tutorial, and don't forget to subscribe our channel, and stay tuned, and thanks for watching this video.